Welcome to English 9, an exciting time for you can learn and explore the world of English. I am sure that you are all excited to learn today. This is Mom Evelyn De Campo, your English teacher who loves teaching the children who love learning. And today, we are going to explore fun activities in our lesson. But first, make sure you have your pen, your notebook, or a paper, and your self-learning module in English 9. Are you ready to learn, class? So let's get started. For today, you are expected to make connections between text to particular issues, concerns, or dispositions in life. Are you fond of reading books or stories from your mobile phones or from Wattpad? Or are you fond of watching movies? What's your favorite movie? And how did you feel while reading or after reading or watching? Our first activity is called Picture Connect. I am going to flash a set of pictures and you are going to describe each picture and share to us what the picture reminds you of. What does this picture remind you of? Does this remind you of your favorite pet, your pet dog, your unbreakable bond with your pet? What does this movie remind you of? Can you relate with the character of Catherine Bernardo as George? Are you willing to sacrifice just for the name of love? Or are you willing to fight? Or did you experience some struggles in a long-term relationship? Have you experienced this while reading or after reading? Did you feel scared or afraid after reading a horror story? Or did the story that you read make you laugh or smile? Or did you cry after reading? Because it seems like you're actually the character of the story that makes you very emotional, very sad, that you also feel the pain of the character. Or have you experienced this? Did you imagine owning a car, a house and lot, and other material things? Why and how do these things happen when we are reading? Do you have an idea? Yes, you are correct. We are making connections. So, what are connections? Connections are links that readers can make between what they are reading and the things they already know about. So before we proceed to our lesson proper, let us test your prior knowledge. The directions, identify how the following reading makes connection to the text. Write the letter of the correct answer, and you are given 15 seconds for every number. The story I read reminds me of a vacation that I took to the ocean, just like the main character. What type of connection is this? A. Text to self. B. Text to text. C. Text to world. The answer is, you're correct, letter A, text to self. Number 2. I read on the newspaper about how water pollution was affecting marine animals. And in this article, I am learning about why pollution can make a marine animal sick. What type of connection is this? A. Text to self. B. Text to text. And C. Text the world. Timer starts now. What's your answer? The correct answer is letter C. Text to world. Number 3. I read another book about spiders that explained that spiders have venom, and in this book, it reminded me about the feature article on the top 10 dangerous spiders of the world. What type of connection is this? A. Text to self. B. Text to text. And C. Text the world. The correct answer is letter B, text to text. Number 4. I read from a Healthline article about foods for the brain that have been linked to improved brain health and make excellent choices when you're cramming for an exam. It reminded me that I have a quarterly exam next week. What type of connection is this? A. Text to self. B. Text to text. C. Text to world. What's your answer? Your answer is, that's correct, letter A, text to self. Number 5. I read a book about an extraordinary boy who has supernatural powers, and it reminded me of the book Harry Potter. What type of connection is this? A. Text to self. B. Text to text. And C. Text the world. The correct answer is letter B, text to text. What's your score? Did you get perfect? Or did you get lower than 5? Don't you worry, because today we will learn this lesson about making connections. It's reading time! This time, we will read a poem which is an elegy. So, what is an elegy? An elegy is a sad poem usually written to praise or express sorrow for someone who is dead. Let us read the poem Crossing the Bar by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Reflect if this relates to you and the world you live in by answering the questions that follow. You may get your self-learning module and turn it on page 6. Let me give you a short background of the poem Crossing the Bar. It was written in 1889 when the poet Alfred Lord Tennyson was visiting the Isle of Wight and published in a volume Demeter and Other Poems in 1889. He was 80 years old at that time and was down with a severe illness from which he eventually recovered. The illness, however, made the poet ponder on death as he himself was very old and nearing his time. He uses the metaphor of crossing a sandbar to represent death in his poem. He died 3 years later, and although he wrote a few more poems, he requested that all of his poetry volumes be ended with this kind of poem. Thus, the poem is an important one and can be seen as Alfred Lord Tennyson's choice of his final words. So this time, let us read the poem Crossing the Bar. Get your self-learning module and turn it on page 6. Crossing the Bar by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Sunset and evening star, and one clear cove for me, and may there be no moaning of the bar when I put out to sea. But such a tide as moving seems asleep, too full for sound and foam, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. Twilight and evening bell, and after that the dark, and may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark. For though from out are born of time and place, the flood may bear me far, I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar. You understand the poem after reading? So this time, we will answer the comprehension questions and let us find out if we could connect to the text and to the world we live in. Let's have the first question. Number 1. What do sunset and evening star symbolize? The sunset and evening star are symbolic of getting old, as the evening star appears in the sky at the time of sunset when the day ends. Metaphorically, it refers the end of the life of the speaker. Number 2. What does turn again home in stanza 1 mean? When it turns again home refers when the tide comes back in, feeding the harbor and covering the sandbar. If the tide is in, that makes for smooth sailing for our speaker. He can cruise right out over that sandbar with nothing standing between him and the boundless deep. As in, the speaker's hopes the tide will be cooperative when his soul returns to its home in the boundless deep or death. Number 3. Who is the entity referred to by the world pilot in stanza 4? The pilot is a metaphor for God, whom the speaker hopes to meet face to face. Number 4. What does crossing the bar mean? Crossing the bar means crossing from life to death. Number 5. How can you relate the meaning of the poem to your personal experiences? Does this remind you of the reality that we have to accept the finality of death, but some of us are scared of it? Why don't we make our life worth living in the face of death? Verse 6. Can you associate this with other people's experiences? Yes, it is associated with other people's experiences. Many of the old age today want to die quietly and gently without fear, reassured by the knowledge that what comes next is a meeting with God. It reminds us of dying. It reminds us of the reality that we all end our journey in this world, that every person will be crossing the bar. Reading material like the poem that we presented a while ago portray particular themes and meanings. By understanding their elements, we can say that they create significant connections to our personal experiences and to the world we live in. Reading does not just consist of reading the words on the page. Comprehension does not just magically happen. In fact, experts have come to agree that for real comprehension to take place, Readers use one or more strategies to aid in their comprehension of a text. We use strategies, and one of these critical reading skills is making connections. And this is one of the easiest strategies for you to master simply because you are likely already doing it without much effort. From the previous learning test that we had, we will now understand what making connection is. So, what is making connections? Readers use their schema or their prior knowledge to connect their background knowledge with the information in the text. When a reader does this, it is often referred to as making connection or using schema. Schema is a reader's background knowledge that is used to understand the text. Readers use their background knowledge of topic, author, and their own personal experiences to understand the characters, plot, main ideas in the text. How do we make connections? We must learn how to access this. Previous experiences, knowledge, emotions, understanding can help you make connection to the text to help you understand concepts better. Why should we make connections? Good readers make connections, and good readers stimulate their schema or prior knowledge before and while reading. There are 3 different ways that a reader makes connections. And these are the 3 types of making connections. First, text to self, text to text, and text to world. Text to self. It is a connection between a book and your life or experience. And these are the questions to ponder or to ask whether the text has a connection to ourselves. First, what does this remind me of in my life? Second, how is this similar to my life? Third, how is this different from my life? Fourth, has something like this ever happened to me? Fifth, how does this relate to my life? And sixth, what were my feelings when I read this? Let's have this example text. My brother and I were playing around when things got out of hand. As we were wrestling around on the floor, my foot kicked the glass coffee table and smushed it into pieces. What does this text remind you of? Did you ever fight with a relative? Or did you ever break an object? What was it? How did it happen? And how did an adult react? The second type of making connection is text to text. It is a connection between a book and another book or text that you have read. And these are the text-to-text questions to ponder or ask. First, what does this remind me of in another book I read? Second, how is this text similar to other things I've read? Third, how is this different from other books I've read? Fourth, have I read about something like this before? Let us connect with this example. What story does this lion remind you of? Did you think of the movies The Lion King or The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe? Did you think of Kipling's The Jungle Book? Is that lion similar or different to the main character of your book? The third type of making connection is text to world. It is a connection between the book and events in the real world. And these are the text-to-world questions to ponder or ask. First, what does this remind me of in the real world? Second, how is this text similar to things that happen in the real world? Third, how is this different from things that happen in the real world? Fourth, How did that part relate to the world around me? Okay, now that you learned the three types of connections, which are text to self, text to text, and text to the world, let us now test your understanding. So the directions is, identify how the following reading makes connection to the text. Write the letter of the correct answer. You are given 15 seconds to answer after I read the text. 1. Something similar happened to me when I was little. This is an example of which type of connection? A. Text to self. B. Text to text. C. Text the world. Number 2. I read a book about what life was like before electricity. It reminded me of the time I went camping in a cabin that had no electricity. A. Text to self. B. Text to text. And C. Text the world. Number 3. I read a non-fiction book about how to get better at tennis. It reminded me of the tennis tournament I read in the sports news. Is that A. Text to self. B. Text to text. C. Text to world. Number 4. I read a chapter book about a girl who worked in a factory in New York. It reminded me of an article that I read in school about child labor laws. Is that A. Text to self, B. Text to text, and C. Text to world. Number 5. I read a magazine about the new airport the city is planning to build. It reminded me of how small many local airports are. A. Text to self. B. Text to text. C. Text to world. So now let us check your answers. And the answer for number 1 is, you are correct. Letter A, text to self. For number 2, what's your answer? You are correct. Text to self. Number 3, what's your answer? You are correct. It's letter B, text to text. Number 4, what's your answer? You are correct. It's letter B, text to text. Number 5, what is your answer? You are correct. It's letter C, text to world. What's your score? Did you get the perfect score? Congratulations! We have to remember that making connections is a critical reading comprehension strategy that helps you make meaning of what you are reading. And there are 3 types of making connections. And what are these again? Yes, these are text to self, text to text, and text to world. For your assignment, you have to read the short story The Gift of the Magi on pages 12 to 15 of your self-learning module, and after reading, accomplish the Notice Wonder Connect Organizer on Learning Test 5, page 16. Before we finally end our lesson, let us put this quote in our mind. The most important things in life are the connections you make with others, by Tom Ford. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed and learned something new today. Once again, this is your teacher, Ma'am Evelyn De Ocampo, who loves teaching to children who love learning. Bye-bye! See you again in my next video.